A very good morning to you. Welcome to the West Ham Voice on Monday morning. I hope you've all had a relatively good weekend. Um, this morning's show is going to be all about transfers, about players coming back, players leaving, players that we're targeting. And yes, I've got one of the cats here who's decided to take a nap. Good morning to you, Sushi. Sushi there. Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? If you're new to this channel, first time you're watching the West Ham Voice, then please do consider becoming a subscriber of the channel. It costs nothing to subscribe and it costs nothing to receive all the content. And whether you're a subscriber or not, please, if you enjoy and appreciate the content, please do hit that like button. So, Graham Potter's task of rebuilding West Ham's senior squad is currently underway, with a number of academy players already called back from their loan spells, as well as the possibility of one or two senior players also returning. I'll talk about those in a moment. In addition, West Ham are trying to identify a number of transfer targets to bring in, probably on loan if we're unable to generate enough money through player sales to actually buy any players. There's talk of some players leaving, but the thought that we're likely to allow any key players to leave on loan at this moment in time seems a little bit far-fetched, although not totally impossible. The simple fact is that we do need to add players rather than losing any more at this moment in time. So let's cover all the transfer stories and all the angles as they stand. So first of all, I mentioned we've had one or two players returning from their loan spells. Academy players, centre-backs Michael Forbes and Levi Lang have been recalled from their loan spells from Bristol Rovers and Cheltenham Town, respectively. Now, with regards to Forbes, it hasn't quite worked out for the 20-year-old left-footed centre-back. He made just 12 appearances in all competitions for Bristol Rovers, with only 5 of those being in the starting lineup and only 2 of those being in League One. The rest of those starts were in League Cup competitions. Forbes did pick up a minor injury as well in December, which made him miss a number of games. As for Lang, he had only 6 starts during his time at League Two Cheltenham Town and also missed a chunk of games earlier in the season due to a knee injury. So what happens to these 2 players? Are they going to be called back into the senior team? Highly unlikely. Lang was immediately back in action for the under-21s when he started in the Nations League Cup game against Ebbsfleet United a few days ago. It's expected that Forbes will also start to feature more regularly in the under-21s as well, if another loan deal cannot be arranged. Now, what that means is that it will allow defenders from the under-21 squad, such as Kiernan Casey and Ollie Scarles, to be called up to the senior squad on a more regular basis. So that's the advantage, I guess, of bringing Forbes and Lang back, is that Kiernan Casey and Ollie Scarles can be part of the senior squad. At the weekend, we also heard that under-21 goalkeeper Christian Heggie was also called back from his loan spell from Motherwell in the Scottish Premier League. Now, Heggie is a very highly thought of young goalkeeper. And it's thought that he might have got a bit more game time in the Scottish League, but unfortunately, that wasn't to be. He just made 2 league starts for the Scottish club, and those were both in cup competitions. Now, it's expected that another loan deal will be sought for Heggie, and he's had some decent loan spells in the past at Stevenage last season, as well as Dutch club Den Bosch. It won't surprise me if Heggie goes back out on loan abroad, and again, to get some decent game time. Like I said, he is highly thought of. Now, what about players who are staying on loan? Because there's kind of been mixed news about who might be coming and who might be staying back to West Ham United. For example, there's rumour that Freddie Potts is not likely to come back from his Portsmouth loan spell. He's having a great season, but it looks as if he'll be staying there for the duration. George Earthy, who's on loan at Bristol City, Gideon Kodua on loan at Wycombe Wanderers, Callum Marshall at Huddersfield, and Patrick Kelly are all likely to stay out on loan for the remainder of this season. But the good news is that they're all getting plenty of game time and are getting very favourable reviews from the respective clubs that they're at. Maxwell Cornet, there was about a week or so ago, the new Southampton manager suggested that they were going to cut short the loan spell for Cornet. But it's my understanding that he's tied in for the whole season. So that's not likely to materialise where Cornet is to come back to West Ham. As it stands, James Ward-Prowse is also likely to stay on at Nottingham Forest at this moment in time. Now, the reason why some loan spells are tied in for the whole season is because of wages. Now, Nottingham Forest have agreed, and I believe Southampton have agreed to pay the full wages of both players for Ward-Prowse and for Cornet, respectively. So bringing them back would mean that West Ham would have to take back on the burden of paying their salaries. And by the way, salaries are already tied up for the players that we've got at the club, including the loans that we've got. And we're already aware that the loan deal for Naif Agurd doesn't have a break clause in it, so he is going to be staying at Real Sociedad for the remainder of this season. Now, what about players who are leaving West Ham United? And of course, we've been hearing many rumours flying around for several weeks that a number of players could be leaving West Ham in this window. One such player is, of course, Guido Rodriguez. Now, look, he's never settled into the Premier League, and the game, to be honest, was too fast for him. And it'll be of no surprise that Potter will endorse Rodriguez leaving in this window. He didn't use him in the cup game against Aston Villa last Friday. He was one of just a couple of players that weren't used. So I think we'll be seeing Rodriguez moving on in this window. Now, whether he goes on a loan deal or whether he goes on a permanent remains to be seen. If, for example, we wanted James Ward-Prowse back, but we moved Rodriguez on, then yes, I can see that happening because we will be getting rid of Rodriguez's 70-odd thousand pound a week wages and using that to get Ward-Prowse back. But to be honest with you, I think we'd more likely use those wages on a different player, bringing in someone different that we need. Monaco's bid to sign Edson Alvarez on loan was doomed before that proposal was even put to West Ham. Now, just why Monaco would think that West Ham would be willing to allow Alvarez to leave on loan is an odd one. Granted, just like the Rodriguez situation, Alvarez coming off the wage bill could be an attractive enough proposition. And also granted that if West Ham were to agree a loan with perhaps an obligation to buy for Alvarez to go for around 45, 50 million pounds with Monaco or any other team for that matter, then all of a sudden the proposition becomes quite attractive, because what we can do then is bring a player in on loan with maybe an obligation to buy, and the two would balance out. The only other player that's mooted to possibly be leaving West Ham in this window is Andy Irving. There were rumours recently that Irving might be leaving for potentially Celtic in the Scottish League. However, we've not heard much about that since it was rumoured about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So what about transfer targets? Well, quite interestingly, there have been some targets which are obvious and one or two others that have gone a bit quiet. First one is Fikayo Tomori from AC Milan. Now, there were rumours about him coming to West Ham. I mean, we heard rumours about him potentially coming to West Ham in the summer, and those rumours have rematerialised in the last week or two. But that's gone a bit quiet, so nothing as yet. As already mentioned, we're unable to call back Naif Agurd, who would have been ideal to come back to West Ham in the system that Graham Potter is playing. But there you go. Um, so if Agurd's return is not happening, then that means we're going to need some players in this window in the centre back position. Now, interestingly, I can see the potential of Agurd coming back at the end of his transfer, at the end of his loan spell, and fitting in to a Graham Potter system, three at the back. But given that that's not happening now, we need something for the here and now. And two players that have been mentioned is that we might be targeting Chelsea centre backs Tosin Adarabioyo and Axel Desai. Now, they've been in and out of the Chelsea team throughout the season, and a possible approach might suit Chelsea, one of these players, and West Ham. Now, naturally, we can only get one of the two players. We can't get two players on loan from the same club. But given that they're not getting a lot of game time, Chelsea might be interested in allowing one of them to leave on loan until the end of the season. The only other player that at this moment, Ben Chilwell is another player, by the way, that's been rumoured, but I don't think we're going to be going for a left back in this window. I think primarily what we need at the back is a centre back. Another player that could be of interest to West Ham is 21-year-old Liverpool centre back Jarrell Quansah. Now, he's very highly thought of. He has made a number of starts for Liverpool this season, primarily in cup competitions, and he's made 2 Premier League starts as well. Ironically, Arne Slot has deemed him good enough to start him in almost every game against West Ham so far this season, both cup games and in the league. Now, a short loan spell for this player might be, especially in the Premier League, might be deemed as part of the player's learning and development. And I can actually see Liverpool agreeing to a short loan deal should we make an approach for him. With our current squad, this right-footed centre-back is likely to get far more game time at West Ham, and it will be interesting to see if we pursue a loan approach for him. And what about midfield? Well, we go back to Chelsea again, because we've been linked to 2 Chelsea players, Carney Chukwuemeka and Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall. Now, I've already mentioned that we cannot target more than one player on loan from any one Premier League team. So if I was a betting man, I would say that we would more likely target one of these 2 players to get on loan from Chelsea rather than any of the centre-backs that they have available. Chukwuemeka will be well known to Graham Potter because he was at Chelsea when he was signed by Potter and Chelsea at the time that Potter was there. 21-year-old defensive midfielder, bags of energy and some pace on him as well, would be an ideal player for West Ham at this moment in time. Now, if you recall, I mentioned that the only way we might allow Edson Alvarez to leave West Ham on loan could be if Monaco, as I said, if Monaco agree to a loan with an obligation to buy for Edson Alvarez for around 40-odd million pounds, and then we can make the same bid for Chukwuemeka to come from Chelsea to West Ham with a loan obligation to buy for around about the same price. Now, if we agree that, then I can see the potential of Alvarez leaving. Would Chukwuemeka be a better option than Alvarez? Perhaps so. He's got several years on Alvarez. He's not likely to get as many yellow and red cards as Alvarez, but and also he'll be a player for the long term. Even if we did agree to a £40 million deal, even if he stayed with us for maybe 2, 3, 4 seasons, he'd probably still be worth that if he's delivering for another club to come in for him. Failing that, then the possibility of Dewsbury-Hall, box-to-box midfielder, is something that we really, really need right now, is another option. Dewsbury-Hall is not getting the game time, despite signing for Chelsea in the summer transfer window in 2024. He's not getting anywhere near the game time that he believes he deserves. He's a very good player. Chelsea paid a good price for him. So it would be very, very interesting to see if West Ham make an approach for either Chukwuemeka or Dewsbury-Hall. And finally, up front, there's a whole host of names coming out of the woodwork, and they're mainly players who have been linked to us in the past. And ironically, most of them ply their trade in the French league. First of all, is 30-year-old Gaëtan Laborde. We were linked to him when he was still playing for Montpellier back in 2021. He's since made 2 moves in that time to Stade Rennais, and then, after 1 season, to OGC Nice. He's got 2 years left on his contract at Nice. And I would say right now, the likelihood of him coming to West Ham is total nonsense. I think the last thing that we're going to be doing after the experience that we've had with Nicholas Füllkrug is to be going for another striker who's in his 30s. Next up is Eli Wahi. Now, he's another ex-Montpellier striker who we were linked to a few years ago. In 2023, he moved to Lens for a fee of 30 million euros, and last summer moved to Marseille for a fee of 25 million euros. You can understand clearly that it wasn't that successful at Lens, so he went for a lower price. But so far this season, after making 14 appearances for Marseille, he's just scored just 3 goals. So clearly, Marseille want their money back, but West Ham are highly unlikely to buy him and maybe not even think about loaning him. Next up is another OGC striker, Evan Goussand. Now, he developed through the Nice system and has since been loaned out to several French clubs over the past few years. But so far this year, the 23-year-old striker has done rather well, scoring 9 goals with 4 assists in 24 appearances, which includes a goal in the Europa League. Now, he can also play out wide as a right-sided attacking player, possesses good speed. It's a bit weak in aerial duels, but I would imagine that this may not matter under the Potter style of play. But he's an important player to Nice, and only just recently extended his contract till 2028. Now, it's highly unlikely that Nice would be willing to loan him out in this window, as they're probably more likely expecting a bidding war in the summer should he continue with his good form. That's probably one of the reasons why they decided to extend his contract in the summer of 2024. And one more player who plies his trade in the French league is the inevitably it's inevitable because 24-year-old Canadian international Jonathan David has only got 6 months left of his contract at Lille. Now, apparently, West Ham have been offered the chance to sign him for £25 million in this transfer window. I think no chance. So far, he's resisted any attempt to extend his contract. Lille would obviously like him to renew his contract or at least sell him in this window to get some money back for him. But David has intentions of walking away on a free transfer in the summer. I think he believes, and probably quite rightly so, that a big club are going to come in and snap him up on a free. To be honest with you, I would love to have Jonathan David at West Ham, and £25 million would be an absolute snip, even if he has only got 6 months left on his contract. He's a goal machine, and he's proved this again this season, where he's scored 17 goals with 5 assists in 26 appearances in all competitions so far, and that includes the Champions League. And finally, of course, Evan Ferguson, the loan deal that West Ham have said to have made to Brighton, but Brighton won't budge until later in the transfer window when they have a better idea as to when Danny Welbeck might be back from his injury. Now, what does that say of Evan Ferguson when Brighton are waiting for the return of a 34-year-old striker in Welbeck? I don't know about Ferguson. I've said this before. I'm not so sure he would be the ideal player that I would be going for as a striker option in this window, but who knows? That's the update. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please do hit the like button, as I said, and please do consider becoming a subscriber if you've enjoyed the content. I'll be back on Monday night with the West Ham Weekly, which is a complete roundup of all the news throughout the past week. So do join me for that as well. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will see you all very soon.